Good evening, everyone. I'd like to thank you for joining us today for Flights of Fantasy. I'd like to warmly welcome on stage the creator of the Limb Fantasy for Companionship, for piano and orchestra. Please.
Thank you, Alvin. Wow. Welcome, everyone, and good evening. What an indescribable feeling to be here at the world premiere of the Limb Fantasy. So the Limb Fantasy story tells a future of companionship, a partnership of human and inanimate, of life and non-life. Though it is fictional, it is based on circumstances that are both tangible and real. Foremost, the loneliness that pervades modern society today, set against the backdrop of some of the most incredible new sciences and technologies in our time. This is giving rise to a whole new breed of artificially intelligent companions. The Limb Fantasy brings a soft humanistic approach to the coming age of these embodied artificially intelligent companions through the use of an adorable, soft, plush inanimate, Alan. This story is about to come to life through the brilliance of 140 choristers and musicians on stage.
The work Limb Fantasy, it's I would call it multi-discipline. For example, it has a narrative. It's written for classical symphony orchestra. It's written for a solo pianist. It has a singer in it at the end of the whole work. There's electric guitar, there's drums, there's bass, there's a huge chorus part that's super integral to the music. When you have something of that proportion, it's going to change the mindset of what music is and what music needs to be. And that's really important because we look at ourselves as global artists that embrace whatever's going on in the world. And the work like the Limb Fantasy forces us to think that way, where you have to understand all different art forms. And as you sit down there and contribute to your own part to the music, you start to integrate how important understanding the different disciplines are. So that's why it will be a trademark.
As an artist, I always looked for stories and ideas that could help humanity turn into a happier space. And Susan had the perfect story. She had the perfect initiative and the perfect intent. Her as a scientist she wants to serve happiness to the world, to bring people to have companionship, to help people lead better lives. And her resource is music. Now that's a beautiful thought. It just gave me a lot of confidence to understand that I could dwell into the different realms of storytelling, into very complicated science. And like I have said before, what I really liked about Susan was that she was not trying to tell a bigger story and turning it into a very small, simplistic thing. No. She's taking the time and effort to turn it into a bigger story because it is a big story and there's a lot that needs to be done and there's a lot that needs to be understood. And she is going all the way.
It's been an incredible journey from the inception of our storyline and our music. I can't believe it was in 2015 when our story was first conceptualized. And fast forward a couple years, we're in Abbey Road Studio 1 recording our music, and today we're having our world premiere, which is really quite incredible.
I feel it is a proud moment to have the world premiere of the Limb Fantasy in an iconic landmark, the Esplanade, Singapore, which today has taken its place as a premier performing arts venue, both in Asia and globally.
Being here in Singapore for the world premiere of the Limb Fantasy of Companionship is something really special. And I feel I'm in the heart of the creation of the entire project. And that's a very special feeling to be here.
Singapore is now emerging, among other things, as a global hub for arts, for culture, and for music. Susan and Christina Teenstan, both of them, the co-creators, they're Singaporeans. So one can easily say that Singapore is the birthplace of Limb Fantasy. It may have taken birth here, but it got incubated in the mountains of Courchevel, and then it got recorded at Abbey Road Studios with the London Symphony Orchestra and with London Voices. But I think today, for Limb Fantasy to have a world premiere in Singapore is very natural, because it all culminates into where it started.
And now it gives me the greatest pleasure to introduce composer, orchestrator, and arranger of the Limb Fantasy of Companionship for piano and orchestra from Bordeaux in France, Manu Martin.
Hello everyone, it's a special day for me and for all the Alan team where we are. Because the first premiere is always something special. I just want to say that I'm very grateful and it's an honor to be here in front of you. I hope you like it as much as I liked to orchestrate and compose it. Suzanne has a lot of informations. Working with her on that project was very helpful to me because she comes from the medicine and the medical part, and I come from the musical part. And so the thinking was to mix our knowledge. And so she explained to me how our part was working, and I explained to her how our part was working. And so that was a funny thing to translate music into medical and to translate medical into music. And so we had to find a way to share our common feelings.
It was really amazing to get to work with Manu Martin, the composer and orchestrator of the Limb Fantasy. One of my favorite songs, that I wrote is Timeless, and it was incredible to see how Manu Martin actually turned it into an orchestral piece. None of the character of the song is lost in translation. I think where Manu is really brilliant is that he takes the original intention of the artists and who write their songs and actually transforms it into this orchestral piece without losing any of that initial flavor of the original song. And it was incredible to work with Manu Martin on such a massive and amazing project.
Yeah, I mean, I'm been so honored to have several conversations with Manu Martin. It's, I joked with him. I said it's a gift to be able to connect with the composer. I'm not going to get a text message from Brahms or Tchaikovsky that says, "Can you do this faster? Can you do this slower?" But Manu being the composer and Susan being the creator, I mean, who else better to inspire you than the person who was there at the genesis, the heart and soul of the story? And for a conductor to have that gift of being surrounded by these creative souls, you feel so lucky to be connected to what you are working on. So it's been amazing.
So I've known Ted Josephson now for some 5 years, and remarkably, I've found some similarities between solo pianist and surgeon, such as the absolute diligence of practice, the focus, and technically, the deftness of the fingers and precision at execution. Through the music of the Limb Fantasy, we communicated seamlessly, as if we were instinctively aligned in our thoughts.
Susan and I spent many days and countless hours going over details, shifting things back and forth, questioning this, questioning that, putting it together this way, putting it together that way. And I think in the end, Manu was quite pleased with the way it's turned out. And certainly I'm quite thrilled.
Ted is a marvelous piano player, and he has so much experience that for me it was a privilege to be with him and to learn from him. His knowledge about the technical thing in piano, he showed me a lot of things, and I learned from him because sometimes what I wrote for his piano, he told me maybe it could be better that way or that way. And I learned from him, and it was a privilege for me to be with him and to learn from him.
Our storyline is so futuristic and it's so unique, and we really have used a lot of music from different cultures, but also blended that with different schools of thought. So our co-creators are in the medical field, our composers are animators, they're also scientists and other doctors. So we've been able to kind of harness everyone's strengths and put that all together and create this really unique and innovative storyline, which kind of focuses on science and the future of companionship with artificial intelligence.
Because it is so futuristic and so hopeful and so energetic in all terms, it tells a story of the humankind as a whole and the future of the humankind and the companionship.
The theme of the Limb Fantasy is through which Susan wants to communicate with the world at large that these technologies offer optimism, they offer solutions, and she wants to do it through the medium of music.
I had the ideas to introduce the music to the general public, and I thought this would be something that would be very much appreciated in the time where we are now, where we have rock elements, we have great choir music, we have marvelous solo music, we have piano music, we've got a great orchestra involved in this. And I liked the music very much, and I liked the concept of the way they explained the entire vision which they had for the creation of this masterwork.
I am Jérôme Bouygues. I am a guitar player, and I'm from south of France. What happens today is the real life stuff, because the first time I did it in the studio, it was like a dream. So now it's real life, it's live with musicians, and I try today to live the moment.
My first initial feelings and emotions to the music is that it's so relatable. It has epic proportions. At moments it sounds like film music. At moments it sounds like high German romanticism from the great classical, composers. But oftentimes it's very reflective and it's very intimate, and you connect with the music so easily. It doesn't take a experienced musician to feel something when you listen to the Limb Fantasy, and that's, I think, its secret. I think that's why it's going to be such a momentous occasion.
Hi, I'm Fred Rivière. I'm coming from the south of France, Toulon, and I am the bass player on this project since 2017.
I think the biggest honor when you work that hard on a project is to be asked to be the voice of Alan, the actual center of the story. This moment is something I'm looking for very, very, very much.
This is really a great project to be part of. The scale of it is huge. I believe this is the first time since the 2.5 years of COVID that the orchestra is on stage with a full-size choir, and I think the audience can't wait for that. And it's a sold-out concert. It's going to be spectacular.
It's definitely a huge honor to do the world premiere for the Musicians Initiative. We've done different commissions before, different premieres before, but not something that's as large as the Lim Fantasy. Conducting the Lim Fantasy it's fabulous. I mean, it's a huge work. It's gargantuan. There's so much elements in it from all genres of music that it's been a pleasure to rehearse and finally bring it to the audiences in Singapore.
When Alvin called me in April, and I was like, whoa, what's this project? Lim Fantasy, and it requires a big chorus. And the chorus who recorded it was London Voices. And I listened to the recording by London Voices and LSO, and I was immediately captured by it. I jumped at the opportunity, and so did all the choir members. Throughout COVID, we were constantly dealing with issues like what it means to be a person, what it means to be happy, what it means to have music again. I think Susan's creation really brings out the importance of those aspects. And I find that the choir's role in this piece is so symbolic and significant because we represent the human part of it. And yet, with Manu's help, sometimes we sound like a gospel choir, sometimes we sound like angels from above, sometimes we are like the magicians in another magical world. It's all very, very colorful and very exciting.
It's really surreal to see the way that whole journey has tracked and progressed, and to see where we started and to see where we ended up, kind of reflecting back on all of that. It's incredible how far we've come.
To describe the journey in one word, I call it the Arc of Alan, and it has been an exhilarating ride.
Optimism and inspiration. I think these are the two things which Susan has tried to weave through music, because she believes that music is something which would be a universal language which can be understood all across the world. So to be able to now deliver this message of hope and inspiration and do that and communicate that through music is, I think, exhilarating for her, and I hope it'll be for the audiences as well.
And I think it's just a masterwork. And once this piece gets heard by the public, you know, it's one thing to put on, to make a recording, and it's another thing to walk out on the stage and actually perform it. But I believe that once this piece is heard publicly, here in New York especially, London and New York for the first two, I believe that there are many, many pianists from around the world who are going to want to perform this and possibly even build their careers on the strength of the beauty and the power of this music and the story behind the music. It's quite a remarkable situation, and I'm really quite delighted, privileged, and thrilled to have been a part of it right from the outset.
On this momentous occasion, I wish the entire Allen team could be here with us, but they will be represented in spirit through the Allen portrait, which last made its appearance together with the entire team in Abbey Road Studios for the recording of the Lim Fantasy back in November 2019. The Allen portrait has made its journey from London to Singapore. It is the emblem of our theme of companionship, and when it takes its place alongside the musicians on stage at the world premiere, it will represent the spirit of the Allen team as one.